There are moments in life when we come face to face with challenges that seem impossible, when it feels like the dreams we've carried for years are slipping further and further out of reach. We've all been there. The point where we're standing in the middle of a storm and everything inside us wants to give up. Maybe it's a dream that seems too big, a problem too impossible, a situation that feels like it'll never change. But what if I told you that in the midst of those challenges, God is doing something extraordinary? God is looking for people who are bold enough to believe that He can do more than we ever imagined. So today I want to talk about how you can step into a whole new level of faith, trusting Him for the impossible. Now you might be thinking, but I don't know if I can believe for the impossible. Well, listen, there's a truth that's been around for centuries that you need to hear today. There is nothing impossible for God. That's right, nothing. The Bible is filled with stories of men and women who saw the impossible become reality. And guess what? God hasn't changed. He's still in the miracle-working business. He's still ready to do things in your life that you can't even wrap your head around. But here's the key. You have to believe first. I want to start by telling you that God isn't waiting for you to figure it out on your own. He's waiting for you to let go and believe Him for the impossible. The Bible says in Jeremiah 32:17, Sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you. Nothing is too hard for God. There's no barrier, no storm, no enemy too big for His power. I'm telling you today, God can do what you can't. Maybe you're looking at your life and seeing a mountain that feels too big to climb. Maybe it's a relationship that's broken, a financial struggle, or a health crisis. I want you to hear this right now. God has already seen the solution. The victory you're waiting for has already been won. Let's look at Matthew 19:26, where Jesus says, "With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." Jesus is telling us that what's impossible in our eyes is nothing in God's hands. He isn't limited by our limitations. And listen, if He's brought you this far, He's not about to leave you in the middle of the storm. One of the biggest barriers to believing for the impossible is a limited perspective. We get caught up in what we can see, what we can understand, and what we can control. But God is asking you to shift your perspective. Look beyond what's in front of you and start seeing things through His eyes. Isaiah 55:8-9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." God sees the big picture, and He's not confined by our human limitations. When you change your focus from your current circumstances to God's infinite possibilities, everything changes. You may see the problem, God sees the solution. You may see the storm, God sees the calm. You may see the pain, God sees the healing. Don't let what you can see with your natural eyes limit what you believe is possible with God. Your perspective is about to shift, and when it does, you'll be able to believe for more than you ever thought possible. Think about Abraham. God told him he would be the father of many nations, but at the time he was an old man with no children. I can imagine Abraham looking at Sarah, his wife, and thinking, this is impossible. But God came through in a way that defied human logic. When the odds were stacked against him, Abraham believed God, and his faith unlocked a promise that changed the course of history. I'm telling you, your breakthrough is coming. If you're willing to trust God with your impossible situation, you'll see things shift in ways you couldn't even imagine. But here's the thing. You've got to have faith. Faith is the thing that activates the miraculous. It's not enough to just wish for the impossible. No, you need to speak it, believe it, and then take action like you've already received it. Take the Roman centurion in Luke 7:9. This man wasn't even Jewish, but he had great faith. He came to Jesus and said, "Just say the word and my servant will be healed." And guess what? Jesus was amazed. He said, "I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith." This man knew that Jesus had authority over everything. Nothing was too hard for him. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting in the one who does. And faith doesn't need a plan B. You see, Jesus couldn't perform many miracles in his hometown because of the people's unbelief. Mark 6:5-6. There was no room for faith, and without faith, miracles don't happen. You know, when God calls you to believe for the impossible, He doesn't just throw you into it without preparation. He walks with you through the process of growth. I love what James 1:2-4 says. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." The impossible isn't always about an instant breakthrough. Sometimes it's about God using the journey to refine you, to build your strength, to prepare you for what He's about to do. And here's the truth. You are stronger than you think. The process isn't easy, but it's necessary. Your faith will grow stronger every time you step out, every time you face a challenge, every time you keep trusting in God, even when things don't make sense. So don't despise the process. Don't run away from the struggle. God is doing something in you that you won't see until you look back. And when you do, you'll be amazed at how far you've come and how much God has worked in your life. I want to challenge you right now. Are you still holding on to plan B? Are you still relying on your own strength and wisdom? Let me tell you, faith lets go of plan B and grabs hold of God's plan for your life. Here's the thing about faith. It requires action. You've got to step out of the boat. Let's talk about Peter walking on water in Matthew 14:22-29. Jesus told him to come to him on the water, and Peter didn't hesitate. He didn't wait for everything to be perfect. He didn't wait for the storm to stop. He stepped out of the boat in faith. Here's the principle. Faith doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. It steps out even when the storm is raging. You might be thinking, "But Beatrice, what if I fail? What if I sink?" But listen to me. It's better to sink while trying than to stay in the boat doing nothing. Peter stepped out, and yes, for a moment he started to sink. But do you know what happened next? Jesus reached out and grabbed him. Jesus didn't let him drown. When you step out in faith, Jesus is right there to catch you, even if you start to doubt. And here's the final piece of this. You have to trust God in every single circumstance. I know it's easy to trust God when things are going well, but can you trust Him when the road is hard? Can you trust Him when you don't see a way forward? Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Even when it feels like things are falling apart, trust that God is working behind the scenes. Trust that He has a plan. And even when you don't understand it, He is faithful. Today, I'm challenging you to believe for the impossible. Stop limiting God by your own perspective. Whatever you're facing, whether it's a dream, a relationship, or a struggle, believe that God can do what seems impossible. Take the first step in faith. Pray boldly. Ask for the impossible. Don't wait for conditions to change. Step out and watch what God can do. If this message spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear this right now. Hit like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe.